I know I had a hard time interpreting what the hell I just saw. It's like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. How could the universe be filled with cabbages? It's like the cabbages in this sense are the same as flying turtles, which is a reference in our podcast to what in a past life I was sitting on the edge of a cliff, not a cliff, a Grand Canyon type canyon with my mates on horses. And we were watching some turtles fly through the canyon.
Big ones.
Big turtles, big round silver metally turtles.
Yes. Welcome.
Okay, good morning, welcome
to another episode
of Driving to the Race
with your favorite hosts,
Larry and
Inelia. Yay!
And Peebers. BBBs.
Oh, there's BB too.
She's coming to work too.
Yeah, she can do work. Well, today's subject is something that we're both very interested in.
We enjoy listening to many accounts of.
Yes. And we investigate and research and read books about all the time.
Yeah. And some of us have had them. Mm-hmm. Multiples of them.
Yes, yes.
And some of us have not.
Yes.
At least not that we're remembering. Pretty sure not. I think I would remember.
I think you would, yes. Yeah. And those are near-death experiences. And what do people come back with when they've had one? You know, honey, I was really interested the other day when we were talking about this. We were listening to somebody who's had one of these.
Oh, Dr. Eben.
Yes,
Alexander.
Dr. Eben. And he's made a comment about how he didn't even know these things existed before he had one.
Right.
Remember?
You had never read up or heard it, really.
And you said something in the nature, in the nature of, well, the only reason he is because he had one.
The only reason he's researching it?
Yeah. And interested in it. But then I came to think about you because you haven't had one. So how come you're interested in it, and when did that start?
Well, for me, it's been about expansion of awareness. For him, he was I would say, like, he was, by his own words, sort of trapped into his materialistic worldview as a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
And the origins and everything of consciousness and conscious awareness and all that existing solely and exclusively with the brain. And so, I mean, without skipping to the end, I might as well just skip to the end. I think that probably this was the only way to get him back on track in his expansion of awareness, because he, in his life, he ended at an extreme end of material science, and his curious about exploring consciousness. I suppose it gave him the authority to say, oh, we're wrong. It's not that. As a matter of fact, I can prove it. And then we can prove it in this scientific medical way, which is kind of a funny way to prove it, but okay, whatever works for you. So to some degree, it brought near-death experience out of, I mean, we say it brought it out of it's just brain chemicals into there's something more to life than material reduction.
That's a great answer
Kinda.
around why he did it, but I'm more interested in how come you became interested, or how that happened. How did that journey happen?
Well, for myself, after doing Ascension 101 and trying to think of the days, I can't put my finger on the day, but it essentially was to answer the question. I had a question in my mind: is what's the real true nature of reality? So these people that had near-death experiences were sharing their life after lives, their reincarnations, and then some of them were like, and this happened when I died, and I saw the true nature of real, and this is what real really is, and things like that. And so as I started to explore them, it was to get a sense for what the expanded real is like, what happens before you're born, what happens after you die. This is just basic questions, right? So with the I'm naturally curious.
You're naturally curious.
Just naturally curious and observant too. I didn't know there was such a thing as a near-death experience either until exploring expansion of awareness. In that topic, you come across near-death experiences because almost all of the near-death experiences that get shared are sharing an awareness of reality beyond the one that we call our mundane normal.
Yeah.
So it's just natural.
I'm wondering if it had any relationship, or when did this other thing happen when you saw the cabbages and you could look through the cabbages and see different realities? Do you remember how old you were when that happened?
I was
Adult? Or?
within a decade, yeah.
Oh, okay. I always imagined that happened when you were little.
No, that happened right in the beginning part of my waking up to more of broader reality.
And was that like, how do you remember that incident? Was it a dream or
It was out of body experience.
out of body? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think it was around the same time when you started getting interested in?
near-death experiences. Couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't say yes or no with certainty, but I know I had a hard time interpreting what the hell I just saw. It's like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. How could the universe be filled with cabbages? It's like the cabbages in this sense are the same as flying turtles, which is a reference in our podcast to what in a past life I was sitting on the edge of a cliff. Not a cliff, a Grand Canyon type canyon with my mates on horses. And we were watching some turtles fly through the canyon.
Big ones.
Big turtles, big round silver medal-y turtles.
Yes.
3 of them. Like, flying turtles.
Flying turtles.
Okay. That's interesting. Nobody's going to believe this when we go home to the fire. You won't believe what I saw. Turtles flyying.
Then forevermore, your name would in that tribe would be flying turtles. Or turtles that fly.
Yeah, so it makes sense that I'd stick my head into cabbages to see what the nature of reality is.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a bunch of cabbages in a ice rink.
Oh, wow.
You skate along and stick your head in one, and there would be an entire universe of reel.
Yes.
Stick your head out, go to another one, stick your head in. Oh, this is another reel. Oh, here's another reel.
Yeah.
So it was
Nice.
it was my brain at the time making up what I would interpret this experience to be, which is, interestingly enough, what I found with these near-death experiences as they were shared. Because, I thought, as you might think, there's one true real, and that real is the ultimate real, and there's the one that rules them all, or something,
The real that
the ultimate real, the real real, let's get to the source of the real real.
Yeah.
And that if you died, you went to, you went to the real world. Or you see, it's like, that's one of the first stages of waking up to more real, is this one becomes not real. And the other one is the real one, right? And the other one, that's the real one, should have like stability also. So we like lend this real experience to that real experience and say this one's better than that one or more than that one.
That's funny because a lot of the recollections of NDEs, people will state that their experience while they were in that place, the in-between place, or the other side, was more real than this real. Right,
it's more real there.
I've heard that a lot, that is way more real than this one. And then a lot of people experience, me included, that when you come back here, it can never be fully, high definition, or like...
Not as high definition and not enough colors.
It can never be real enough.
Right.
Right, and it's all like subjective.
It's a pale imitation.
Pale imitation of reality, and also,
smaller something?
No. It is... it's not it's not an objective viewpoint. It's subjective, is it? Is that the word? It's like an inner experience rather than a physical experience right here. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit unless you have something to add to that.
No, I think we did plenty of good intro. Let's read the article. So
Okay.
if you want to read the article with us, just go to Substack
Yes.
/Inelia
Yes.
Benz, and you'll find it.
Yeah. Okay. People have near-death experiences, NDEs, and often come back with a lot of information or omission, directions, orders, instructions, or interpretation of what happened to them. Although, did you want to...
Yeah, you read
speak
that
to
kind of funny. So when you were saying it, it was like, it just buzzed right through me. So they often come back with a lot of information
Yes.
or maybe a mission,
Yes.
sometimes directions,
Yes.
orders, instructions, or interpretations of what happened to them. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Although many have familiar patterns, people's interpretations of what happened in the in-between place or the other side can be radically different. And what they decide to do with it can also differ.
Totally.
I have noticed some patterns in NDEs I've heard from reading or watching a public testimony. First of all, the fact that I have heard of them means the person went public with their story, and this already puts them in a category of their own.
Right. Because, I mean, my dad had a near-death experience, but his experience of it was nothing.
I don't remember anything.
I don't remember anything. And he was also given amnesia drugs.
Yes.
So that
Which
he
is
would forget
interesting,
everything.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting that in the ER departments of hospitals, when people come in and they're close to death or near dead, they give them amnesia drugs.
Drugs to block their memory.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, though? I mean, that's the only reason. I mean, they don't. We asked why do they give them to them, and what was their answer?
It's on the schedule.
Yeah,
This is what they do. It's just
it's part of the routine.
part of the routine.
Yeah,
So they don't remember the trauma of the
yeah. There
event.
you go.
Yeah, that's it.
So, and every psychiatrist that I know tells me that if you suppress a memory, it's way more harmful than if you bring it up and talk about it and look at it.
Not to
So-
mention if you're basically on your deathbed,
Why would
adding
you-
in some opium to make you forget, that doesn't seem like a good plan. It's
No,
like,
it
let's
doesn't.
get drunk. That'll help you. Come on, man.
Yes, yes.
So silly. Mm-hmm. Already, anyway.
In other situations, I have first-hand experience of the in-between place and the other side when people known to me have passed on, and I have accompanied them through the valley of death. It also happens that I have personally had 3 out-of-the-body experiences, and a few should be deaths, but by miracle are not.
Out-of-body NDEs, honey.
NDEs. What did I
Yeah.
say?
You said out-of-body experiences.
Oh, out-of-body experiences. To me, they're the same.
You've had many out-of-body
Out-of-the-body
experiences.
experiences like everyday occurrences, but you're right. NDEs.
Right. So when we say NDEs, a near-death experience, if you're not familiar, it doesn't mean I almost died in a car crash.
It means you died.
It means you died, and you
were dead
You
for
maintained your
a few minutes,
consciousness.
yeah.
You were aware and self-aware, and you traveled somewhere. Usually, most occasions, you'll be able to see your body mangled or dead or whatever, and you'll be like, "Wonder who that is." Oftentimes, it'll be like, "Don't even know," and sometimes it's like, "Oh, I know who that is."
Yeah.
Wow, I look so small, or I look so. It's like usually their remark is, their body is
Not
less
what
them than they thought it was, something
Yeah.
like that. At any rate, that was what we mean by an NDE, out of body
Yes.
NDE. It's like
Yes.
your body's dead and you're not in it,
Right.
right? And a few should be deaths, but you didn't. Do you have an NDE when you should have died? No, it's like, remember when you're hanging on the cliff with one hand
Yes, that's
and you're
right.
dead? I
Yes.
mean,
There's no
you
way I
can't
could.
go up, you can't go down.
Right.
The only way down is let go.
Yes, so I did.
That counts as a near-death experience, but not out of body, but it kind of did.
Well, I didn't die, right? So, but it was close to. I should have died.
It was essentially like, remember when the car went off the freeway at the California coast and she bashed through the grate, and there's like 100-foot drop, and she's with her boyfriend. He was driving too fast and he was drunk.
No, I don't remember that story.
Well, they both going over into the ocean. It's like 150, 200-foot cliff. And halfway down, even though she wasn't dead, she got out of her body. So she had wonder how did she ever
back into her
How did
body?
she ever get back into her body? I don't remember the conclusion of that.
Maybe she didn't. Maybe it's an in-between lives experience that she
Oh, it
recalled.
might have been an in-between life experience. Yeah.
Which
she
are also
recalled
some
her
of the-
last death.
Yeah, so those are also very interesting, and we like to read a lot of those.
Yeah, so she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
She got out of her body before her body died.
Yes.
Right. So you were hanging there and you were basically dead. You just hadn't done the let go yet.
All right.
So what happened there?
Okay, so that experience was super interesting. I was 16 and I was climbing rocks in the Lake District in England. And there was this mountain, rock face, and I climbed all the way to the top, but I didn't see from the bottom. What I didn't see climbing up was that the top ended in a 90-degree angle with a shelf above.
Little overhang.
Yeah, an overhang above. And it was quite far, so I couldn't grasp onto anything with my hands to get over to the top part. Right? I couldn't climb onto the top because my arms weren't long enough to reach to the edge of that ledge. It was way too far. And I couldn't go back because I had jumped a few
It gives
times.
me like willies in my stomach just hearing that. Cannot.
And I couldn't
I just
climb
can't.
down because I jumped a few times, so I couldn't go back, right? There was no way for me to go back. I just hadn't looked up and I ended up in that spot. And I'm like, okay, so I can't go up and I can't go down. I'm getting tired. I mean, I just climbed the mountain, right? So I was tired. So I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to die. So I may as well have a go, right?
Yeah.
So I was holding on like toes and fingers, tips of your fingers on the cliff edge. And I kind of leaned up and I tried to go for it, right, the edge, but I knew it's impossible. And it was. And I didn't reach. And then instead of dying, I heard this voice saying, that was very stupid. Plan your trip, your journey ahead of time. Look ahead to know what you need and where to go. This is very stupid. This is the last time we're going to save you. Those words came into my head. And I literally just floated out away from the ledge, up, and then back into on top of the hill. Right, into and on top of the hill. And I landed gently on my feet, quite about, I'd say about 5 feet away from the ledge. And I'm like, thank you.
That counts as an NDE. In the body NDE.
Yeah, it breaks every norm of reality you can possibly imagine.
All of them.
All of them. It happened though. And I had witnesses. There was an old couple from that were watching me. They had spent an hour or two watching me climb the mountain with their binoculars. And when I got there, they were so scared. They actually climbed up to meet me because, you know, the mountain had a hike going up to the top. And they met me up there. Well, not up the mountain, but on the way down. I was actually close to the bottom by the time we met because they were old. And they told me all about it. And they said, we were sure you were dead. We were sure we were going to have to go and get an ambulance. But we watched you all the way and it was so exciting. And then we said, what happened? How did that happen? How did you float up? So I says, I don't know. And then one of them said, I can't remember if the man or the woman says, you've got angels that helped you. And I thought, oh, you're probably right.
They're very short with me now. Don't do that again.
Oh, they did say that to me too. Don't do that again. That was so scary. And we would have seen you die and it was horrible. I was like, okay, be more responsible. Got it. But anyways, yes, that would have been but it wasn't, I mean, it had a breaking of reality kind of aspect to it, right? But it wasn't that I left my body or died. My body did not die. Okay, the mission.
The mission.
Many people who go public with their NDE state that they were told it's not their time and they have to go back, or on some occasions they wanted to go back because they felt they had unfinished business or that they needed to share what they saw and experienced with the rest of the world. There are famous books and individuals whose stories are known by billions of people, for example. The mission often goes something like this. Tell the world that all is love, there are no victims, and we co-create everything. Love after this exists, and we're all in oneness. Oh, we're all oneness.
That's the mission, to let
Tell
the world know.
Yes. Yeah. This mission above sometimes has God or Jesus or other religious authorities instead of oneness or instead of love. You know, sometimes they have ETs.
And sometimes, ETs.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just have, it's like this glowingness thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's light they can't really see.
Mm-hmm.
And they just describe it to the God of oneness or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or the God of, or Jesus, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember we were just reading some of the church, the way that the church describes a saint or something having this experience with Jesus or God or whatever. But then when they go and look at the actual experience and how it was written,
yeah, it was different.
it has no relation to any of that.
Yeah.
It's just
yes.
more of one of these, an NDE,
Yes.
an out-of-body experience with this thing of love. But since it's the Bible, then it's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Or Buddha or whomever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The mission above sometimes has God or Jesus or other religious authority in place instead of oneness or instead of love. The person is greeted by this being and experiences deep, unconditional love. They feel embraced in that love and a sense of finally being home.
Yeah, that finally being home is a curious thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I've also heard 2 stories of men who came back to tell us that hell exists to be good because because that's not the place you want to end up after death. That they had come back to make amends and lead a better life. Right. Those were interesting, weren't they? Like super scary.
Yes, they were. That straightened their butt right up.
Yeah. On one of my own NDEs, I experienced becoming the entire universe, all that there is, all level of existence. And not only did I know everything everywhere, but also was everything everywhere. Then as I began to shrink back to singularity, identity, I saw many people very close to that everything beingness. I separated from one that was the boss, a female, and I remember thinking, oh, that's a first personification, interesting. I bet this is what people interpret as God. For 1 second I was all, then I was that woman, then I was part of a group. And then after she said, time to go back, an old guy grabbed me and jumped into the abyss that led to life back on Earth. That's when I found out that I was pregnant and the old guy was the soul and body of my unborn child.
Well, I mean, can't just rip through that one and go on, huh?
Okay.
So
yeah.
I shared a YouTube link of another fella who kind of had but in my estimation, a similar like experience of expanding from all the universe and back. Mm-hmm. And I think I shared that link in there. One of the couple links in the article. So in your case, when you met the God of Oneness, is that what you called her?
No, it was the first personification of individuality after oneness.
But she was a woman who was at that level of expansion.
One level below, right?
One level below.
Yeah, because she's already apart from oneness.
And she's the God and reality creator for everything that we see here.
Yes. Mm. And because I'm female in this incarnation, then she was female in that expression. And I remember the other part that was very curious is when I was oneness, I knew everything. But as soon as it split into that creator, like identity person, like half of that information was gone. Or the data, knowing was gone. Mm. And then as I moved into like multiple beings on there, then a lot more was gone. So the more I shrank into singular experience, the less I could recall, the less I could hold on to information-wise. And it felt like my brain was too small or something, like my field of awareness was just too small to contain it. And I was like grasping to see what I could
bring with me,
Like
the show we were watching yesterday with the time traveler guy. He wrote all the stuff on his hands so he would be able to bring it with him.
And then he sweated and he was gone. Yes.
Jeez. Okay. Well, that's interesting. And, interesting that your old guy son grabbed you and brought you back. Mm-hmm. Because there's probably just as good a chance as he's like, no, I don't think so. Or what?
Yeah, it felt like that. It felt like he didn't want to, and then now he was forced to.
Yeah.
That's the energy I got. And then one of the first words that he learned to say as a tiny little baby, when he looked at me, it's all your fault. It's your fault.
I remember when we were in England walking behind him, and we were enjoying our time, walking down the road, off the curb in the road, up and down the curb, and splashing the puddles, and just having a great time.
Yeah.
And remember what he did?
Yes.
It was like, you two, get out of the road, get on the sidewalk, behave,
Grow up
a little, would you? It's like,
I know.
jeez, he's half our age.
Less than half our age.
Less than half our age. Okay.
It's okay then.
You said he was an old guy from the day he was born.
Yeah, before.
And apparently from before.
Yes, yeah.
It's quite funny how we bring those forward. Alrighty. So, when did you die? What was that dying from?
Well, I'm not really ready to share what happened
All right.
at a public level.
They'll just say you died and you were like done.
Yeah. I was dead.
Died and done.
And I didn't, like, you know, when I reached that space of being everything and knowing everything, there was no concept of human life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started separating and shrinking, then you get all the other information and data. And another aspect of that, well, we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, I think. Let me just read a bit more, because it does go on. A word of warning, as a side note, and related to the mission a person might bring, be aware that many times the person will pick up riders on the way back to their body.
Oh, yeah.
This is especially true if their death was painful or due to suicide or traumatic. These riders can infuse the person with bliss for weeks or sometimes years, or fear, according to the other guy, right?
Yeah.
These riders can influence the person, with bliss for weeks or sometimes years, and have them convinced that they're good people, that the entities are good people.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. You assume any entity, generally speaking, an NDE one, an entity that makes you feel good and blissed, they must be good for you. They must be great.
Right. The way to identify these riders is that when the NDE person talks about how pain and suffering and evil things are good for you.
That's a good trick.
Because God tells them, or whatever, angel, or they pick that up, right? Mm-hmm. That all experiences are doings are acts of love, even torture and rape. That's the evil entity feeding off their own and the other people's pain and fear and giving value to their feast. And this is where I want to share a little bit more when I came back from that traumatic experience, right? Because it was traumatic.
It just feels like we're such babes in the woods when it comes to this stuff. It's like, come on. We know these things. I mean, that we can logic our way to what you just said. Like, oh, that makes sense, and that makes sense, that makes sense. But in the thrall of it, in the soup of it, it seems like we throw all that out the window. And it's like, well, it made me feel ecstatic and blissful and unconditional love, so it must be God. God said suffering's great, so, suffering's great.
Yeah. But the thing how I detected it, because that death with my unborn child, it was very traumatic, right? And low frequency. And when I came back, I had that bliss energy that everything was love and everything, right?
Yep.
And I was walking around, looking after my babies and children, and quite happy that I was pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, wait, something started ding, 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 ding in my awareness field when a person did something abusive, and the energy was accepted, this is all love. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know this is not true. Right?
You had to work a long time to figure that out. When you were younger, you thought that meant love if someone smacks you.
Yes.
Oh, they must really love me.
Right. Because that's the way that I was brought up, right? But it's like, wait a minute, I know this is not true. And then I started poking at it. Mm-hmm. And so I sat down, closed my eyes, and I said, okay, So is war love? Yes, war is love, expression of love. What about, and then I recalled that incident that I've spoken about in one of my essays. There was a case of extreme abuse of children in Nottingham, where I lived. And I said, what about that? And the entity said, yes, that is all an expression of love. It was done for their good, you know. And like, oh, you effing blah, blah, blah. Get out of my field immediately. I won't buy that BS.
Not for 1 second.
Not for 1 second. Just get out of here. And they injected more love and bliss. And I said, nope, take that BS away from me. And I shut it off, right? Go away. And it was gone. Instantly gone. And I remember thinking, it was really nice. It felt really good, but this is bad. This is bad. I mean, wow, what was that? And I looked and I saw that it was a clinger on, you know, because of the traumatic experience. Mm-hmm. It had clung on to mine and probably my unborn baby's energy fields.
Totally. And
come in with that and I'm like, whoa, that is insane. It's like, what is this? And I thought, okay, now I've got that bit of information, you know, be very aware of bright lights.
And euphoric feeling? And
euphoric feelings, yes. That tell you that, you know, rapists are doing it for love.
They just love you very much.
Yes. I was like, whoa, that's insane. So, yeah, that's how I figured it out.
Yeah. So euphoria isn't necessarily a guide to like high frequency.
Or low frequency.
Or low frequency.
No, it's what they're saying, right?
It's what they're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
When they're giving value to torture and war and raping and all that stuff, then if they tell you, yeah, that's for love and for their good or whatever, those are entities. And actually they're feeding off of that.
Degrading stuff.
Yeah. So be aware of that.
That doesn't mean that a euphoric or a bliss feeling is bad either.
No.
Right? Don't get it wrong.
Yes.
It's just not the guide.
It's not the guide.
Higher low frequency.
No, it's not the guide. Because of course, when you step into that, your true nature or your energy field of source, that's what you're going to feel.
Yes.
Right? But that's good. And
yes.
In that essence, or any entities or yourself or higher self will never tell you that those things are positive and then you know, turn a blind eye or whatever. I don't know what would have followed. I'm probably doing it, you know, to other people. But it's like,
I would say it's like if you have ever had addiction problems or alcohol problems, you can like have no alcohol in your system or drugs and say, I'm not going to do that again. And then maybe you could say, well, maybe just one. And then once you've had just one, you're like, all your judgment is completely off, right? From that bliss feeling.
Yeah.
So your judgment isn't necessarily spot on in that way,
state,
right?
Yeah.
In that state. Doesn't mean that state isn't a desirable state. It just means that state isn't a good guide to the frequency of the encounter.
Right. And what was curious also is that it was very close to that energy that you do feel when all the importances of singularity drop away and you are oneness.
Right.
Or you are the first singularity in that oneness. Because it's all energy. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And you could describe that as bliss, light, love, unconditional love, all the things. You could describe it as all of those things. And therefore short of human words.
Well, it makes more sense to me why so many of these variety of NDE experiences can be, you know, in their body feelings like this is the truth, the absolute truth. I felt it. I can't have mistaken how that felt. Mm-hmm. And yet the description of the experience, you can tap into and see that, just like you said, just like where'd you get that?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
That's not okay. That's not right.
That's not right.
That's just not right at all.
Yeah.
So how do you get there from there? Because it doesn't seem reasonable. It seems like when you die and go to that in-between place, you should be like smart enough to figure these things out. You're right.
But you know, you forget it. As soon as you start coming back to your own identity,
it drops out.
It drops out. Yeah. Because they can't coexist.
That's why I call it cabbages.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, not cabbages, guys.
It's not. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where? Oh no! What did you do?
I just went down a little. Oh no! Right
What
there.
did you do?
Okay. I'm just holding it so I don't hurt your hands.
Oh, BBs! You're squishing BB now.
Sorry, beavers.
I love listening to NDE stories and NDE books. I also love to read books of regressions into the in-between lives place.
Oh, dude.
I love to hear people's recollections and the interpretation of what they experienced, mostly because I like to understand the human condition and how people see things. A lot of people come back with higher self missions. You can spot these because the person is not just happy, but has realized at a very deep level that we're co-creators and that we're in a time and place where suffering, fear, war, enslavement, violence, exploitation, etc. need to be removed from our lives and our planet, and that it starts with each of us in our own lives. Some of the books and videos on the subject that I will recommend if you're interested in exploring this subject are Cosmic Cradle, friends wrote that,
Yes.
and there's a couple of little nuggets from me there too. The first half of the book, Proof of Heaven by Ellen Alexander, MD.
Ibn Alexander. He's the neurosurgeon. Right. When his first book is very, very interesting as a exploration of a near-death experience, because he experiences it as a materialist would, right? To start with, he's just black in the dirt.
Yes.
And then he starts to see worms and things like that.
Yes.
And the first half of the book is just his literal wrote the experience as he experienced it and wrote it down as he remembered it to begin with right away before he had looked at anything else.
Yes.
Is like a fantastic example of a NDE experience, right? An expansion of awareness in that way. So the first half is excellent. The second half would be interesting if you're a neurosurgeon.
Yes, if you're a neurosurgeon or scientist
super
or a
sciencey
doctor.
person,
Yeah.
then you find the second half is also interesting. But if you're not, then it's like gobbledygookity.
Well, to me, it was like, you don't need to prove it to me, dude. I believe you. I know that what you said is true, so you don't need to prove this to me.
And then he did a follow-up book or two, but the last one we just listened to the first part of, and I found it was interesting. What I found interesting, it's called Living in a Mindful Universe. What I found interesting was he has the language now to share the experience in a way that's more accurate, right? So having the language helped.
It does, yeah.
So that's worth
he picked
listening.
up some vocabulary since he had his first experience. Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty good. Another, we'll put a couple links in the
article.
And they are to YouTube videos. They're not this is the truth, the absolute truth, and nothing but the truth.
No.
These are very interesting, very expansive explorations of near-death experiences. They're very good.
Yes.
I enjoyed both of them. I thought they were pretty darn cool. One of them I wanted to talk about if you have a second. The one about the guy who's sewing.
Yes.
Because in my out-of-body experiences, when I see the world, the universe, that kind of a thing, it's like the bigger world, then it starts to resemble what he's got on his tapestry there. It's like, that's more of my experience of reality. And that's a good example of the real is bigger than this real. This real is like small in comparison.
Yes.
And that gives you sort of the feel, just a bit of the feel of bigger real. And it's a bit like the fractal, because when you look from far, it's like a lot of things, an image, and you get closer and then closer and closer and closer, and there's more and more and more, and it's like more world, right?
Yeah.
That you can focus in on and out of, in and out of. And that's the monk. He carried forward his life after life as a monk, right?
Yes.
And the techniques that he used as a monk in the previous life, in this life, before he even knew anything about monks, right? It's interesting how they connect the threads between lives to have these experiences, to make the experiences, we tend to think of us past lives as different, separate, when they're actually
all part of a larger
experience, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. The Navy diver, he's the one before that link. He had a similar type of expansion experience, as you were describing a little bit, and as even Dr. Alexander describes in the first half of his book. So those are both pretty interesting,
very accurate
very descriptions of expanding your awareness outside of singularly.
Yes.
So I think that they contribute to helping us understand, maybe have a great conversation. Well, which is what we're going to have, right?
Yes, on our second half.
I can't wait to see what Fred and Ileana and Ashley and Kara might add to this.
Yes.
If they've had NDEs or read about them or anything.
That'd be interesting, yeah. So if all of our supporters on Walk With Me Now and Subscribe Star
Right.
get access to our second hour of our podcast, where our discussions go way deeper and more like rich than we can do in half an hour. So yes,
Right. We have
well worth it.
engineer, regular all flight engineer, government employee. He's one. We have a doctor, a corporate, like, super person. I don't know how you would call her. So, a lot of education. Ileana from a Spanish origin, Mexican origin.
Yeah,
right?
she's Mexican
so
origin.
Raised as Catholic and that kind of thing.
She's a psychic and mystic.
So the panel,
an architect.
She's trained professional architect, and she did design a house for us.
Yeah, she did.
Which
it's amazing.
I can't wait to build one of these days.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Anyway.
And Ash, who is also a corporate whiz kid.
Corporate whiz kid and a founder of Benz Academy, co-founder, yeah. So,
lots of interesting individuals.
It's way worth tuning in.
Yes.
Give it a check.
All right. We'll see you then.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Love you, honey.
Love you. She made a nice big salad, and it was my sister, my brother, her foster child, a boy, and me that were at the table. And I was the youngest, and I was about 6, 7. And she put it on the table, and she stepped back and said, "Dig in." And they all jumped onto this big bowl and started pulling out the food, trying to grab as much as possible. And I kind of went a little bit, and then I sat back and I watched them all. And my grandma says, hurry, grab your food, otherwise you won't have any dinner. I says, I'd rather go without dinner than behave like these animals. I'm not going to do that. And he annoyed the crap out of her, right? It really annoyed her.